Hello and welcome to PurpleSpace Cascade of Thoughts. I'm Ira, head blogger and head of business development at PurpleSpace. And for today's extremely special episode, I shall be your host, along with Aryan, who is the founder of PurpleSpace. Now, as a part of the youth and Gen Z, we often come across everything being made a gender battle, when the very issue is a product of such actions. Feminism has been absolutely revolutionary. Sacrifices have been made in order to provide the female population with their very basic rights, which should never have been a problem in the first place. But is that all? Have we achieved a balance between the rights of the genders? What is pseudo-feminism? Is it intoxicating the relevance and meaning of feminism? We shall find out.
Because today we had been joined with Japneet and Samriddhi, who are the co-founders and the directors of the international non-profit organization TheGirlCode, that they founded at the age of only 16. Both of them are currently pursuing computer science in their separate colleges, and they both hope to inspire and empower new generation of women in tech. So, Japneet and Samriddhi, how have you guys been doing currently in lockdown?
Hi. I've been doing kind of okay, not super well, but I bake a lot, I read a lot. That's pretty much it.
I just came back from Singapore last year, so I wasn't with my family in 11th and 12th. So this is like great family time till a point. But yeah, using this to learn new things, learn new skills in computing as well in cooking and everything.
I mean, that's actually pretty good because you guys have actually been more productive than I have. Anyways, we're going to move on to your organization. Could you guys explain a little about your organization?
Okay, so the Girl Code is a non-profit organization that we founded in 2017. We were both in 11th grade. It was just like a knee-jerk reaction to sort of, going into our CS class in 11th grade and just seeing like 5 girls there in a sea of 50 boys. And we were just like, why? And, so it sort of just like stemmed from that. And then we realized that it was a bigger problem.
Right. So I had been the only female in my computing club for like 3 years. So it had bothered me a lot. And the next month I was going to go to Singapore for my 11th and 12th grade studies, right? So I didn't want to leave my computing club with no girls. So we had tried recruitment campaigns before and they didn't work out that much because they weren't geared towards a gender. And upon talking to girls who applied but didn't make it, like the left in the middle, I discovered that one thing that they did not find or they were scared of was that there were seniors and all of them were guys and they were hard to approach. Whereas if you see the guys who came into the recruitment campaigns, they were constantly asking questions and eventually all of them joined in. So that gave me the idea of starting a workshop just for girls. So it was just meant to be a one-time thing for my school to get more girls in my computing club. But then I found Samriddhi, we talked about it more, and we decided that it was like a bigger problem and it plagued like a lot of schools in Delhi. So our school was not the only one. And that's how it started. It started with one workshop and now we are spread in 3 countries. So India, Singapore, and the US. And we have empowered over 1,000 girls with the knowledge of programming.
And we have lockdown specific, so we had like online workshops since we couldn't go to schools and host them as we usually do. And we had over 200 participants in our first one and then 200 participants again in our second one. So that's been really great as well.
That's pretty inspiring. So, I mean, in general, when you look at it, streams like engineering or computer science or web development, they don't usually see many women or girls going into it. So what do you guys think is like one of the main reasons why parents or girls don't go into such streams?
As Japneet mentioned, you see it like small scale in like a computer club. So just like one girl there, and then that whole idea of like a boys, room. That's what's there in the Silicon Valley and like everywhere else. The tech industry is like dominated by men, and it's really hard to sort of break into that and like break through the glass ceiling. So that's pretty much the problem. It's a vicious cycle. There aren't enough women. So women are afraid of going into that field.
Okay.
Talking from my own experience, like whenever we had meetings and they asked me to put like my opinions forward, I didn't want to. There were like 15 guys in front of me talking about all their guy stuff and bonding, and I was like just in a corner wondering when will I get a chance to speak. So it was even hard. I was eventually became the programming executive, but it was really hard to get there, and there weren't many female mentors that I had, so I couldn't really bond with them, because I think the way I'll bond with a female senior would be a different than how I would bond with a male senior. And it was really hard to break through their clique. So all of them used to talk, and all of them used to decide on everything, and then I didn't have a voice then. But when we saw that, when we had like, even in the girl code, when we have workshops just for girls, it was like a safe environment where they could be wrong, they could speak, and like no one would really judge them.
That's
And that's what we are trying to do, to break the confidence barrier.
like
Mhm.
even in just again speaking from personal experience, I've had so many times when like I was like working on a group coding assignment or like an engineering project or something, and then I would give my idea, and like the guys next to me, it would be a predominantly guy group because that's just the sad reality of STEM. The guys next to me would just like dismiss my idea completely and like not take it into account, and then if someone else pitched something similar, they would like agree to it instantly. So just stuff like that, you don't understand it till you face it, and then when you face it, you're just like really shocked by how this is still a thing in 2020 now.
Mhm. That makes sense. Wait, so I just wanted to know how Gold Code gained momentum. I mean, how did you get people to actually come in, attend these workshops, attend the things that you do? How did it gain momentum?
That's like a
uh,
story. It's like a big
yeah, a
story. So
long
like
story.
the first workshop we went to, we were trying to get participants. So we announced in the assembly, did all the
Mhm.
shenanigans you do to promote in a school.
Posted
And we didn't
flyers,
get any
like
yeah,
classrooms,
we did
went to
not get
talk to
any
classes.
participant.
Yeah.
And then Samriddhi and I had to go between breaks during recess and more any breaks that we could get, go to classes, be like, hey guys, we're going to be teaching you how to do programming,
Hmm.
and you will learn how to make stuff like websites and games. Aren't you excited? And then you could see so many hands up, and all of them were guys. And
Yeah.
then the words came
Amazing.
out, it's only for girls. And then there's this discussion. Why is this discrimination against guys? Why are you only giving it to girls and stuff? And just by the initial reaction, you could see that most of the hands which were raised were guys and there were no girls. So we had to individually go to girls and be like, you should try this out, you should join it. So I think first we started reaching out to the juniors we knew who might be interested. And then the word went out. And I think we finally realized at the end of like 2-3 days of this crazy advertising that we had 30 to 40 participants, and we were so
Yeah.
happy that I
Like
think 30 to 40
there
is
were
fine.
there were times when Japnat and I went to like the same class twice, and then we went to like their computer classes as well after talking to the teacher, and then we like talk about it like 50 times, and then it took like a lot of effort just to get those first 5-10 registrations. But then after that, they started coming in. So like once a few people sort of volunteered for it. But yeah, it was like a whole thing. But now it's much easier, to get everyone to participate. And then whenever we have school workshops, we usually like contact the school administrators, and they're the ones who sort of do there's a workshop, you should join in, and like get the girls to sign up. So that aspect of it's
That has
definitely
simplified the
easier.
process a lot.
Yeah, much, much more.
So yeah, like recently, the STEM business, or even in general business, has seen a growth of women in them. And the CEO of Pepsi is also women. So
Hmm.
do you guys think that seeing the current advancements in the future, we'll actually start seeing women coming into STEM without being forced? Or
That's the hope. And I don't think they're forced anyway.
Mhm.
I think it's the opposite, in fact, that even if they want to, they're really hesitant about it and they don't end up going into STEM. So hopefully, that's the whole point of like the Girl Code and like our efforts, is that we can one day have equality in STEM, and like girls and everyone just like not being afraid of pursuing their passion and going into this field that's amazing and has so many applications.
I
Okay.
mean, that's the hope for the future, but in the near future, I don't see that happening because I feel like there are a lot of changes required at every level. I myself took science and I was a computer science student. Like, I have been coding since a very long time. And I used to go for these engineering coaching classes, right? FITG, if you're aware of those. So even talking about engineering, which is related to technology and everything, you can see that there's a big gender gap. And if you just look at the coaching classes and the environment that is, I mean, it's not fit for a girl to go there. It's scary. The infrastructure is not good. They're made in these stingy areas which are not safe. I mean, I can expect my parents had to like make me stop going there after a few months because it was so scary. The whole experience of me going and my mom checking in with me every 30 minutes that is everything okay? Is everything okay? So imagine a girl just to study for engineering or prepare for an exam has to go through this whole traumatizing experience where I couldn't even wear my school uniform because my school uniform had shorts in it, and obviously I can't wear shorts to such an area, right? So that's it. It's like just so traumatizing. Change after school, change before school, and all that stuff. Like, it's really hard even to just study for that exam, which I feel is completely unfair.
Yeah,
So just from that small experience, from school classes like Samriddhi mentioned, 5 people in a computing class, it's just hard from the very beginning. So if we want to see women coming up on their own, joining the field on their own, there needs to be change like from the very first level, like the day they're born, it needs to be changed.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
I mean, again, it is about, I mean, these are the situations that do take place on a daily basis everywhere. And these are the situations that motivate us to come up with such ideas. Okay, so we've talked about GirlCode now, but as founders or co-founders of GirlCode, what does the word feminism mean to you?
Japni, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. To put in one word, it's equality. That's it. That's what it means to me in my head. It's equality. And people have questioned me before that how do you believe in equality by running an organization just for women? Well, you need to level the playing field first. Before we even get to equality, there needs to be equality. And you need to help the classes or the genders or even any other criteria, the races or any other criteria that you want to use, and get them up to the level where they can compete with other people first. And that's it. That's what feminism means to me, equality.
What about you, Samriddhi? Yeah.
Pretty much the same. I mean, feminism at its core, by definition, is equality of like all genders, be it male, female, or like something non-binary. And I've often sort of come across people, and whenever I tell my friends, oh, I'm a feminist, they're like, oh, that's really cool. And I'm like, aren't you? And they're like, no, I believe in equality. And then I go, that's literally the same thing. And it just has like this sort of image of just by virtue of containing the word feminism, people are like, you're trying to like raise yourself above men. But I think it's really important to recognize the fact that this is that women have been like oppressed for centuries. It's barely been 100 years that women got the first right to vote, and then in 2015, that's just 5 years ago, women got the right to vote in Saudi Arabia. So it's I mean, it may seem alien to you or me, but it's very real that like women are not
just
granted
a few years back,
right.
just to drive
Yeah,
in Saudi
just 5 years
Arabia.
back. And even now, it's not like you have, women have the luxury to be educated or like right to, food or jobs or opportunities and even driving everywhere in the world. So, yeah, it's about uplifting women, as Japnet said, because, they've been oppressed for centuries ever since like the dawn of civilization to reach equality.
All right.
Yeah, so girls and women have been oppressed for centuries. And when you're born into an Indian family, the first the first thing that a girl hears in an Indian family is that she has to know everything how to do in the house. She has to handle the house, and she has to become the perfect wife. So for girls that are suffering this right now, what advice would you give to them? Like, how can they break that wall that their parents and the society has built around them and actually reach their full potential in fields that they're actually interested in?
I must say I'm very privileged in that matter then, because when my dad had to choose between my brother and me, who he will introduce to coding, he chose me. So for me, I feel like I've never been oppressed in that way, but obviously, yes, there have been implications. I'll be trying to go out somewhere, and then suddenly at the door I'll be told to change my clothes and stuff like, yeah, I get it, I need to know cooking and everything. Now it's under the disguise of, wait, you'll be going to college next year, so you should like know cooking, but I know what it's for actually. So I get all that. I completely get that. And I think you just the only advice that I would give to people, because I don't think there's any solution for change in mindset, is education. So you just need to talk to your parents, and sometimes you need to oblige them to get to do what you want. So it's like we can't think or act like the situation isn't present. It is present, and it's really hard to change mindsets. But maybe you could come up with something like, okay mom, I'll cook for 30 minutes, I'll help you, because I'll take cooking as a skill and not something that I need to do as a housewife. But I also go work on my robot for 30 minutes, and then you tell me how cool it is. So it needs to be a balance of both. Being a feminist, I don't approve of things like, okay, I'm a feminist, I won't go into the kitchen, or okay, I'm a feminist, I won't do anything that females are supposed to do. I mean, these are just things that everybody should know to be independent. So definitely learn those things, because they'll help you in the future if you want to stay alone, and you will be if you want to work somewhere and everything. But have a balance, and the only way to do that is to have a conversation with your parents.
I honestly think that was a great answer, not gonna lie. Okay, as our podcast, as mentioned earlier, is about pseudo feminism. So now that we've discussed about feminism, we'd like to move on to this term. What do you guys think about pseudo feminism? What relevance does it hold, and what does it mean?
To me, pseudo feminism is just, as the word suggests, pseudo means fake, so fake feminism. Anyone who, at its core, like I said, like Japnit said, feminism is about equality, right? Equality of all genders, of all races. And in particular, the movement is about giving women basic rights to, sort of level that playing field and get them up to the privilege that men have inherently just by being men and being born into this patriarchal society that we live in. So, pseudo-feminism, it could just be, people who, I hate to use the term, but like misandrous, as rare as that is, or like someone who, forces, just being a bad feminist in general. So if someone chooses to be a homemaker and then you claim to be a feminist and like shame them for doing that, then that's not actually being a feminist, because feminism is all about choice, and women just having the choice to do what they want to do. If that's being a homemaker, then that's completely fine. That's you should respect that. And it's not easy being a homemaker and raising kids. It's not easy working jobs. So just like respecting choice and opportunity, and anything that doesn't do that, I think is pseudo feminism in whatever way. So
What about Japnat?
Yeah, I completely agree.
Mhm.
It's just, like Sam said, it's fake feminism. It's not true to its values of equality. And if there's no equality in your definition of feminism, then that's it. It's not feminism anymore. So yeah, pseudo feminism is just that for me. Like feminism is equality for me. Pseudo feminism is not equality for me. Simply put.
So as you guys talked about pseudo feminism and what it, like how you guys are how you guys completely disagree with what pseudo feminism is. But do you guys also feel that when feminism movement started, the message that feminists and women wanted to tell men at that time has changed right now, or do you think that the message is still the same?
So I think, if you're talking about the starting of the feminist movement, then I would interpret that as the suffragette movement, which was basically just for the right to vote. So I think in that sense, the original sort of wave of feminism was just about getting those basic equal rights. And while those may not be a reality for, sadly, for quite a few women all over the world, I think in most major democracies, women do have the right to vote, and they do at least have in the constitution, basic rights granted to them. So in that sense, the conversation really does change. It's not about like basic rights anymore. It's about something beyond that. It's still basic, I think, in that women should not be discriminated against in the workplace, that girls should have the right to education and everything. But I wouldn't say that they're as fundamental as just like saying the right to vote or the right to call yourself equal to like a man, which was what the original movement was about.
For me, I feel like the values still remain the same, only the context has changed. I mean, some situations are same, completely similar to now. Like just talking about India, people still expect women to raise their kids, reproduce, and all that stuff like they did before. And the reason we didn't get voting rights before was because we weren't expected to be part of the political aspect of life. Like we were just supposed to be limited to domestic. And in that terms, the context is really the same too. I mean, I'm just going to talk about things that I'm familiar with. So I studied in Singapore, and I studied till grade 10 in India. So those 2 years in Singapore, I wasn't recognized by my gender. That was like the greatest I have felt ever, because nobody looked at what I was wearing, which is like a true reality for like women or even girls in India. And nobody cared what I was doing. Nobody, like, gender was not a criteria anymore. Whereas here, it's always been a thing that has stopped me in a lot of places. I wanted to go for coding workshops, and mom is like, can't go because somebody needs to drop you. You can't use the public transport. In Singapore, they're like, this is the time, please come here at 11 a.m., at 11 p.m., nobody cares. So gender is not a criteria there anymore, which was it was quite a relief. So in terms of that, I feel it depends country to country in terms of what the context is. But essentially, the value and the message is the same, because we haven't yet achieved it completely.
That's true. Adding to what Japnit said about like not being able to take like autos or anything on your own, it was so bad that I was going for girl code workshops to host them to DPS Rohini, I believe, and my parents would not let me take the metro on my own, so I had to either be driven or go with like a bunch of friends, which obviously had to have guys in it, or my mom would drop me. So, and then if I'm in the States, they don't care if I'm Ubering from the airport. Like, they don't care that I take a flight alone. That's like 24 hours, 7,000 miles. That's fine, but you can't go an hour away, take the metro. So just like restrictions like that, it's you don't realize how crippling they are until you like sort of taste the other side of it. Just like being able to travel or move on your own is just not a reality for girls in India and a lot of like South Asian countries and Middle Eastern countries, and it's really sad. But
and it's really weird to see how your parents' mentality also changes. So you realize that, okay, they're not backwards, they're just concerned about your safety. In Singapore, my mom is like, okay, go to the hostel at 11 p.m. Here she's like, be back home by 5 p.m. before the sun is down, because something bad is going to happen when the sun is down. So you realize that they're not actually backwards, and they're not stopping and limiting you. They're just concerned about you.
Which I understand, India is not a safe place, particularly Delhi, for girls, for women.
Definitely.
All right. Okay, so now we're going to be moving on to masculine toxicity. So masculine toxicity is basically these certain expectations that people, specifically pseudo-feminists, hold for men, how they're supposed to act, how they're supposed to be, how all men are going to be sexual abusers, how all men are not supposed to walk inside the house, how all men are supposed to be going out doing jobs. So these are basically certain expectations we hold against men. So what do you think? Has masculine toxicity stemmed out from pseudo-feminism or the actual feminist movement?
I think masculine toxicity sort of came from like, it didn't stem out from feminism or pseudo-feminism. I think feminism was a reaction to masculine toxicity, or, that whole rigid structure, like that definition of being a man, you have to have a job, you have to be tough, you have to be macho and all of that. It's not just, degrading to women, or like, it's not just bad for women, it's bad for men too, because just like describing in like rigid ways that this is a way you have to be, it's just not a way to live, and not everyone can conform to that or adhere to that. So I think masculine toxicity didn't stem out of feminism. Feminism was a reaction to masculine toxicity, in my opinion. And then as you said about pseudo-feminists, believing that like all men are rapists or like all men are abusers and everything. Again, um, by definition, if they're pseudo-feminists, they're not like actually, believing in equality. And if you actually have a worldview that sort of criminalizes 50% of the population, then there's something really wrong with your mentality, I think.
Okay, Aryan.
So recently we've seen the term toxic masculinity and pseudo-feminism lead to wars between girls and boys. So what do you think that this battle between genders is acceptable, or is this just the toxic nature of humans coming in?
For me, I feel like sometimes it's important to look at the situation and not turn it into a gender battle. Because eventually, if you ask any guy and you ask them, would you want your mother or sister to face these things, what like other girls face, their answer would be no. And then if you say you're a feminist, they'll get offended because they're not. So that's the thing. I feel like feminism as a word has been misinterpreted because it is synonymous to man hating now, and thus all these other terms like pseudo feminism and the terms that we hear every day. And the thing is that this is not the time to fight with each other. This is the time to stand together and fight for our rights. So if feminism includes fighting for male rights as well, it includes the right for a boy to cry whenever he wants or let his emotions out. It includes the status of a father being uplifted. It includes everything. It's about equality. And if you prefer to call yourself an egalitarian, then it should be okay for you to call yourself a feminist as well, because both of them mean the same. Just because women were oppressed and the word is a bit feminine, then, and it was a patriarchal society, you shouldn't have a problem with it. Imagine 1,000 years ago, if it was a matriarchal society, I wouldn't have a problem calling myself a meninist, because then that would be the need of the day. Right now, the
Yeah.
need is to have equality of both genders, and the one being oppressed right now is women to a more extent than men. Though there are some men rights also we need to focus on, like whenever it comes like whenever it comes to like in family courts or criminals, you always imagine a man. Like for an engineer, you imagine a man, you always imagine a criminal as a man also. So those are biases that we need to battle, which are against men, but we need to do it together. We can't do it if we fight about these terms, or
That's
we
true.
fight about whether to call yourself a feminist or not.
I think adding to what Japnit said, when people have like a problem with feminism, you see it with like the Black Lives Matter movement, people saying all lives matter as like a vehement response to Black Lives Matter. I think, that's the same. Those are the people who have a problem with calling themselves feminists. You're uplifting Black lives because they haven't mattered and they haven't been given importance. And it's the same case for women, that you're uplifting women because they have been oppressed. And it's just the reality of the situation we're in. And, also talking about like feminism in general, I think it's not just about binary genders, but like the trans community or the LGBTQ community as well. Just like the freedom to have equal opportunity to choose what you can, and just like not be discriminated on the basis of what gender or what sex or what your identity is. I think that's like the core belief and the core value here.
I think those are absolutely incredible answers. It does provide the message that we can't be making everything a boy versus a girl thing, a boy versus girl situation, but rather we should be united and stand against those who do such injustices, or do such injustices. Okay.
I think just like making everything a boy versus girl sort of just like draws attention away from the conversation. It twists the narrative in a way that it sort of everyone becomes defensive and comes to attacking each other. But whenever there are like problems, our society as a whole fosters this environment. So patriarchy isn't just something that like men have inflicted upon women. It's not like I haven't seen sexist like grandmothers or mothers or like sisters or friends. It's an ingrained institution.
Wait.
I don't remember what it was. Yeah, so as I was saying, it's an institutionalized thing, patriarchy, and it's been ingrained in us since we were kids. So it's been ingrained by our fathers, mothers, grandparents. So you can't just pin the blame on like one gender or one person. Or so all of us have to come together, like introspect and realize that this is a problem that like all of us face, be it men, women, or like anyone.
Yes. Okay,
So
so
that's why no gender
mhm.
battle, I think.
All right. Yeah, Aryan.
Yeah, so as you said that it's our parents from the start, our grandmothers, they have these certain mindset and certain stereotypes they have in them already installed about what a girl can do, what a man can do. Now we are the future generation, generations after us. We do not want them to have the same stereotypes. So how would you suggest the current generation to try to break such stereotypes that only girls can be teachers, only men can be soldiers? How do you suggest the current generation start breaking these stereotypes?
I think it would start at childhood. So I think my parents, I won't say I'm a feminist because I'm a feminist, like I chose to be one. I feel like I was raised as one. So it is counterintuitive, but I think the inspiration in my life, who inspired me to be a feminist, was my mom. And she's a homemaker, not by choice. She has better qualifications than my dad, and still she was taught to work by her father, then by the whole family, then eventually children. And like, this is not a story of just my mom. It's essentially the story of most Indian women, at least in the previous and the generations before. So if you see, there's a drastic contrast between what my mom's aspirations were and what she compromised over and what I am today. So if you ask me to compromise over my career, I would not, but that's my choice. I don't want to. And I am already a part of the new generation who hopes for equality. So I think it needs to start from childhood. It needs to start um, when you have children, or when you see your siblings who are younger than you don't tell them that, okay, the girl goes to the kitchen, the guys sit there interacting with the guests. No, you make the guy go to the kitchen, help the mom. So for me, like always, I never let my brother not go into the kitchen. So usually I used to sit outside and used to be like, okay, you go to the kitchen, I'm not interested going there. But that's not because I just don't like working in the kitchen. That's it. So yeah, I mean, you need to instill it from the starting. If my brother wanted to cry, I always let him cry. If he wanted to talk about something sensitive, I asked him to talk to me regarding stuff like sensitive topics like reproductive health, menstruation. I made sure he knew about those things, so that if one day a girl comes to him and says, do you have a pad, or can you ask someone else to have a pad, he wouldn't shy away. And like in the class, if he sees a girl carrying a pad without, like, not covering it, he wouldn't panic. He needs
A
to be
point and
aware.
mark.
And I think, yeah, and as a sister, I think that's all I'm concerned about, making sure my brother doesn't inflict things that I was inflicted upon by other children, and making sure that he
That's
provides a safe environment for women to talk about their problems, and he is sensitive and empathizes with them. So just these small little things are all that matter to me. It doesn't matter if he opens an organization and empowers women like I do, but it just matters to me that he doesn't make any girl feel unsafe in his eye.
yeah,
So I guess
personal.
if I have to give advice, it would be that start talking, have a conversation. I mean, you can't change your parents now. It's really hard to expect them to change at what, 40 and 50. But you can change your 10-year-old brother, you can change your sibling, you can change your cousin, you can change that junior in school. So start talking to the next generation and try instilling the values that you have in them.
Yeah, that's so important. I think, as Japnit said, like personal change is something that's in your control. So if you see someone passing like sexist comments, or like is being snide or something, you can like put a stop to that. You can call them out on it, and you can tell them, no, that's not okay. You shouldn't say stuff like this. Even if it's just like people not being sexist in a very like open, in a major way. It's just like small things here and there. Those small things matter. Those small things sort of, give way to the bigger things. And from Japnet's experience of having a brother, I have an elder sister, and like just like her mother, my mom was never given an opportunity to work, and that was always something that like really held her back and one of her regrets in life. And she always made sure that like her daughters, she never spared any expense in our education. She never like let us believe that we couldn't do anything we wanted to do. She was, she wanted to send us abroad because she wanted us to get the best education possible, something she couldn't do. So you already see like a generational change in just that one generation of like Japnet's mom and my mom, and them doing everything possible for their daughters to have the opportunities that they couldn't. So changes like this, it's really possible for us to implement them just like by in our like own small circle of like influence that we have, even if it's not opening up an organization or anything, just like being fair, calling people out on being sexist, calling yourself out. If you're, I'm not always a perfect feminist. Sometimes I have to call myself out on my own behavior. If I see something and then, I think about it and I'm like, okay, that was not okay for me to say something like this. So yeah, it's like a learning process, I think, being a feminist or being just like striving for equality.
Okay. Oh wait, I'm gonna edit this part out. Anyways, what value do you think does gender hold in today's world, and why? Okay, let's just phrase the question this way: why is gender a priority, or do you think gender is a priority or a criteria in certain places or certain situations in today's world?
Definitely. It's a criteria at many places. And for the good or the bad, you cannot ignore it. I mean, we can't just pretend and think that we are equals, everything is fine, because the ground reality is that it is a criteria. You see at workplaces, they would prefer hiring a male because, because they think
Women are
that
mothers.
females cannot. And even if there are laws like in Netherlands that you have to grant a maternity leave, that would also sometimes negatively affect the recruiters, because they'll be like, oh my god, she's going to go away for a year, and then we're going to have to pay her salary also. So there's like a negative and positive impact of both. And in other cases, gender can be used to uplift the weakened gender. So like for in terms of reservations or organization like ours which focus on gender. So definitely gender is a criteria in many places, and we can't ignore that.
Yeah, that's true. Like you have to recognize that it's a very real problem, and it's as much as we like it to be otherwise, the genders are not equal. In whatever way. Privilege is a very real thing that men have. So recognizing that privilege and sort of doing what we can to ensure that women also have, the opportunity to, choose and just like grow and just work if they want to, or like in politics, or just as Japnet said, like corporations hiring women are like very, especially if they're of if they're mothers and they have like other focuses, they're very like wary of hiring women. So there is a need for us to understand that this is a very real problem that we face. So we have to have practical solutions for it, as much as we would like it to be otherwise and for the world to be equal. It's not. So
I've heard people say all the time that, look, we have progressed so much. All the housewives are now working. Like, they are not housewives anymore. All the women in the next generation are going out. But what they don't realize is when they come back tired with, like, their husbands are, they are still responsible for most of the domestic chores.
that's
So
true.
if you see studies, 70 to 80% of the domestic chores are still done by women, even if they're working as much as their male counterparts are. They are still responsible for raising children. They're still responsible for everything related to the domestic life. So you expect a woman to first go earn money for the family, and then you expect her to take care of the family as well. People would say call that equality, but I
There's no
won't,
equal
because
division of work as there should be. Like dad should do laundry and like put their kids to sleep or take them to school or like help in cooking. And it's just small things like these, but they really make a difference. How can you have equality in a workplace when you can't even have equality at home? And if you don't have equality at home, how will your children learn equality if they don't see it being practiced?
So the previous generations have already done their damage, and we, the current generation and the future generations, it's the responsibility of us and the future to change the stereotype that we have currently. So at PurpleSpace, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a mindset among the future of the youth, and we're trying to spread awareness of issues that are not talked about much. So at GirlCode, you guys are extremely inspirational. We had an extremely good talk so far. So at GirlCode, what is the vision that you guys have, and what is the mission, and how are you guys going to be going forward in the future?
So okay, I'll just like tell you our mission, and then Japnit can talk about how we're going to go forward. So our mission is just like to empower girls, to break through that glass ceiling, to break into that boys club that's there in the STEM community, to just not be scared by all by when you're picking up a computer and you fall in love with it, or when you're coding and you're really interested by it. We want them to have a safe space, a safe community of like fellow girls with fellow experience, with similar experiences, similar stories, to sort of open up to each other. We teach them basic programming just so they can sort of delve into that world, and then they have all of these opportunities and like resources we provide them so they can explore it further. And I think even in like little workshops we've held, I've noticed like such a difference. So many of the girls that we've held workshops for in schools, they've come up to me and they've told me that this was really cool, I never knew I could program like this, now I'm going to opt for CS in 11th and 12th grade. And that's just like the starting stone, right? If they opt for it in 11th and 12th grade and then they learn it in depth, then they might consider going into a STEM related field for their education, which is a huge step forward, I think, in bridging that gender gap, which is what we aim to do.
Our vision would definitely be to get to more countries, impact more girls all around the globe. So right now we're limited to 3, but we definitely expect us to like expand more, and even reach out to more underprivileged girls as well, who might not even have a laptop to start with. So we are going to start programs in the future focused on government school children, and we will be teaching them from the scratch, even how to use a computer, how to get like use the office suite, and how to get like all the practical skills in place. So it's basically, our vision is essentially just getting as much outreach as we can, talk about this issue, make sure everybody knows it, and make sure everybody who wants to go into STEM gets the support that they need. And that can be done through hosting workshops, teaching them ourselves, maybe having future scholarship opportunities, or even just talking about it on our Instagram and other social media. So it's just about getting the word out and helping people on how to code, how much ever we can, so that eventually they can code with confidence.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. I mean, even I have taken computer science, and this was absolutely incredible talking to you guys. On behalf of Aryan and I, a huge thank you to the both of you and to the whole GirlCode team for joining us in this incredible episode. We, as I said before, we love talking to you and hope to see more young women. I mean, in fact, more young people take up initiatives to eradicate all sorts of prejudices, injustice, etc. Again, thank you so much, and guys, please check out the GirlCode, and yes, stay in tune for more PurpleSpace podcasts and blogs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.